Hello everyone and welcome to the video where I'm gonna describe how did I perform my data analysis assignment. My research project is called How do ECEs use children's perspective to inform their practices. During stage 1 of this assignment, I transcribed all the data and then I took my time to read and reread all the transcripts. I noticed that I was looking at the transcripts at each interview as a different set of data, and after I was able to read and reread, I was able to look at these interviews, the 6 interviews as a whole. While I was doing that, I started writing down ideas, possible relations, some observations, and I started putting things in the margin of the transcript. I would like to say that this might be called an initial stage of open coding, even when I didn't start purposely open coding until the following step. In stage 2, I used the grounded theory method to analyze my data. I start with open coding to identify units of analysis, creating new codes every time I was encountering new codes to find. Then I will use actual coding to find and link those open codes into broader units of analysis. And then I will use selective coding to identify a core code or what we call our theme for my research questions. So I start my open codes. I end up with almost 15 codes. You can see them in the screen. Then my second stage of grounded theory method are the actual codes. I end up with 6 actual codes that allow me to achieve my 2 major themes. My 2 major themes were educators' competencies, strategies and predispositions, and conditions that enable children's participation. I'm going to go back here to the chart to explain to you why I end up with that. As you can see, my research is interested to know how do ECEs use children's perspective to inform their practices. So having this main research question in mind, 2 broader themes were described. One was referred to the strategies, competencies, and skill the ECE and predisposition the ECE have to encourage this listening practice, to encourage children's perspective, which was called Educators' Competencies, Strategies, and Predispositions. And the other major theme was referred to all the challenges ECE found in the field and conditions that influence the way they perform these practices. That's why the theme was called Conditions that Enable Children's Participation, because when we overcome these challenges, we see what is really needed in the field for ECEs to start to seek for, to seek for children's perspective. So after analysis, I started analyzing the data, I found that educators' competency, strategies, and predisposition, that was one of my sub questions. The educators, this is the theme. So my theme, educators' competency, strategies, and predispositions will include the competencies that educators have, the strategies that they use to seek children's perspective, and the predispositions, and the tools they use to do that. My other theme, conditions that enable children's participation, will be the participation challenges that would include which challenges educators find when they are seeking children's perspective, and the children capabilities. So preliminary results show that the strategies that ECEs used to approach children perspective were communication, observation, active listening, and presenting open-ended materials. So if we go back, we can see one of the strategies that the educators reported will be asking questions to children about things that they like and dislike, and engage with them during the play and explore the train of thoughts or encourage questions or conversations. So they will use mainly open questions and dialogue and conversations to seek children's perspective. They also claim they use observation to understand sometimes what the children are trying to express. They observe children when they are playing, interacting with material and with other children. They look at their body language, expressions, and feelings. The participants stated also that they document their observations to keep track of the children's interests and use it later to plan the curriculum. Another strategy that they use active listening. So what they refer to do is listening to the children while they're playing or interacting with peers. And the last strategy that they used was presenting open-ended materials, like using loose parts to allow children to manipulate freely those materials. They claim that children are expressing their perspective and individualities during this type of activities, as no one is putting certain expectations on the activity per se. So it's more they are more interested in the process than in the product, which really tells you what the child might be interested in. They also claim they assume a role of co-researcher, which is also related with the predispositions educators have and the role they assume while they are interacting with children. If we assume in a role of co-researcher, that means our position of power will be like trying to level up with the children, would really will benefit the communication between the child and the teacher. Some of the challenges educators might find in this process will be children's ability to communicate their thoughts. Many educators express that as the children grow up, they will be able to verbalize what they want to do, what they don't want to do, so it will be easy to seek those perspectives. Another challenge that they found will be the policies that childcare settings policies will influence the way these educators seek for the perspective of children. For example, adult-child ratios and safety measurements that really influence the way and the time educators need to engage in meaningful conversation with children. Another challenge that they found was educational philosophies of the center, determine the way educators seek for children's perspective. This was something very interesting because we don't stop to think. I as a researcher just assumed that listening to children and encouraging children participation was considered the best practice. But actually, there are many childcare centers that are run under a theme-based approach or a different philosophy that really doesn't incorporate children's perspective in their practices because they are orientated to achieve a product rather than the process of learning. So they will be more academically or traditionally run. And of course, if you are just focusing on academic goals, you won't be interested in understanding how the child will want to, uh, or which goals the child will have or will want to pursue. And the conflictive teaching philosophies. So many CEs state that many times they are willing to follow children's perspective, they are willing to engage and follow this practice, but their partners, they are not. They don't want to do it, and that's another challenge that they found in while seeking children's perspective. And we all know how important it is like working with a team that is supportive and for the dynamic of the childcare setting. And how are children considerations used in the classroom? That was my last sub question. And mostly, if we follow what this EC reported, children's considerations in the classrooms are mostly used to incorporate their interest in the plan activities and to build the curriculum. And another thing that they say, children's considerations are used to enhance their learning experience. So will be something that they build on in the moment. The educator will observe the child. They see they are interacting with materials and they will go and enhance that same learning opportunity. So it will be something like very in the moment while they are interacting with the children. So that's all for today. Thanks for watching. Enjoy your time and stay safe. Bye.